idea for the show.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
Cross Coast Spice presents the League About Nothing podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It has been far too long, but we are finally here to do the draft recap. We missed all the preview stuff, and we've been putting off the recap for a while, but we are finally here. We are finally ready to do it. Al, how have you been?
Finally over your championship game loss hangover?
Absolutely not.
6 months. I know that's the only reason you didn't want to get on here.
I'm not going to lie, it did have something to do with it. But no, we just, life is busy. 27 kids between us, and it takes some time to get to things.
Approximately.
Who's counting?
Well, the rookie draft is a good time to turn the page, right?
It is. It's new beginnings for everybody. All those of you who had picks anyways. So we're going to go through the first round of the rookie draft player by player. And then after that, we're going to jump around a little bit. We're going to do our best to trace the origin and journey of some of these draft picks because only 3 of them remained with their original owners through the first round.
Trying to track these picks back through all of the trades back to their origins was an adventure.
Right. We had to use some outside tools as opposed to just going and looking at the trades because I think you told me that one of them had been traded 8 times. Is that correct?
I spent almost an entire workday trying to track these trades back. Some of them go back all the way to 2023. So we're talking about multiple years of trades for the same thing.
When you can trade at least, what is it? We could trade 29 picks now. So you could trade 3 years ahead. It's going to happen.
Some of them
people like to move picks. People like to make those trades. And sometimes it's the only thing available to you or the only piece that fits.
Yeah. We'll attempt to make sense of it when we get to the picks.
All right. So without any further ado, let's get to the Mr. Good News show because he was the one who had all the picks in this draft. Now we're going to start off. Mr. Good News making the 101, which was his own pick. The first 3 picks are the only ones that didn't change hands. And with that first pick, it was Jeremiah Love, the running back for Arizona, and kind of expected.
It was not for lack of effort. I tried to get this pick to change hands. Mr. Good News shut me down. He would not return my calls.
This is an interesting thing to me because Mr. Good News is in a rebuild, but this is year 2 of him starting to draft players for the rebuild, and he has some more picks next year. It's so difficult to get that Bijan Gibbs tier of running back. And once they've emerged as that tier of running back, they very rarely get moved in any league. And if he sees the opportunity here to get Love on his roster, I have to assume that his roster will be significantly more competitive 2 years from now, and that Love's still going to be, if Love is what we think he is, he will easily still be a top running back at the time.
Yeah, that's the important piece. If Love is who we think he is, and based on where he was drafted by the NFL, it's a 3rd overall pick. Not a lot of running backs get that kind of investment from the team.
So, not a lot, practically none. Is there anyone higher than that since Saquon?
It's been a while. I mean, I know that Trent Richardson went.
That was
in this range. And he wasn't even good, and
No.
he still got a million touches because that's what teams do when you draft running backs this high. Even if they're not good, they're going to be productive for fantasy for many years.
Yeah, he was productive for 2 teams. I mean, part of that is because he was traded still on his rookie contract, but he had a couple of top 10 seasons, so that'll play.
Barring catastrophic injury here, I mean, you can pretty much pencil Love in for the next several years. There's not a lot of running backs that you can project with that kind of workload over multiple seasons, and Love is one of the few.
And if for whatever reason he has a tough rookie year, like say, Genty had a tough rookie year, but I don't think Genty was bad. It's the same situation. If the team around him is bad and he struggles a little bit from a fantasy perspective, well, Mr. Good News is not in a championship window yet. He's rebuilding still. It's not a big deal.
Right. We don't think we're going to get the 2025 version of Bijan, but we might get rookie year Bijan, which is
Exactly.
still pretty good. But Tyler Algier is probably going to get more work than fantasy investors are expecting.
Yeah.
But the same thing happened to Bijan rookie year. It's not a big deal
with
for
Tyler Algier, yeah.
exactly same exact situation.
And
Algier's
I'm
probably
sure.
going to vulture some touchdowns. He's probably going to get a lot of carries. This is a long-term investment for Arizona. They're probably not going to be very good this year. But for Mr. Good News, it doesn't matter. If he hits his peak in year two, year three, well, that's when he's hoping to be a more competitive team.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. 101, take the best player on the board. Unless you get an overwhelming Godfather type offer, which was probably not on the table, then just take the best player.
Yeah. I don't think many teams had the capital and pieces to make a Godfather offer. I don't think it
Yeah,
was
'cause Mr. Good
that.
News had all the picks. Nobody had
Yeah.
anything to trade him.
Right.
He
Like
had them all already.
I would have loved to make a good offer for Jeremiah Love. However, the only draft capital I had at the time of the draft was one first and one second round pick next year. And obviously, that's not going to cut it for the 101 most years.
I think he wanted more than that.
Exactly. So I didn't even attempt to make an offer because I didn't want to go into the player pool.
Right.
And I'm sure that for a lot of other managers, it was the same story. Either they were unable to amass enough value in an offer or they just weren't in a position that it made a difference for their team.
That was the one no-brainer
Clear
pick
101.
for this entire draft. He
Right.
was clearly in a tier by himself.
Okay, with the second overall pick, again, this pick was his own. Judd took Fernando Mendoza. He adds him to his quarterback room that already has Joe Burrow and different Love, Jordan Love. That J Love thing, I see it. It's gonna screw people up. Same with the B Robinson. Too many similar initial last name things going on right now for my taste.
At least these loves are on different teams, and they
Right, that's
don't
true.
they don't both say running back Atlanta.
Yeah, this is it's the same Adrian Peterson situation that we dealt with 15 years ago. Anyway,
Nobody
so
besides nobody besides us remembers that.
I'm sure other people remember that. We are not that much older than half the league. All right. So Fernando Mendoza to Judd's team. He adds a third quarterback. Uh, Fernando Mendoza was really the only quarterback for a team that needed a quarterback now. Not that it necessarily Judd needed a quarterback now, but Simpson was the only other highly drafted one, and obviously he's going to be sitting for a while.
Yeah, it seems like opinions were far more mixed on Simpson as a prospect compared to Mendoza. He's been the locked in 101 of the NFL draft for like months,
Yeah, this was
months and
not a
months.
surprise, right?
Not often we see a consensus emerge that early of who the 101 is. I mean, it was before Indiana's season was over. He was locked in at that number one spot. Before we knew who was going to have the first pick in the NFL draft, we knew it was going to be Mendoza.
If it ended up being a team that didn't need a quarterback, you knew that someone was just going to make the offer and trade into it.
Exactly. Yes, I think there's a lot of value in that. I think there's a lot of value in having three locked in quarterbacks as well. We've seen the
Oh
struggles
yeah.
that Judd has gone through with Love and Burrow being off injured, and getting down to one quarterback is really a problem. Not that quarterback is the most important position in this type of format, but only having one is definitely a problem.
Yep. Agreed. And Mendoza being the 101, he's got a leash, he's got every chance to make this work. So even if as is appears likely right now, he doesn't start the year, he'll have the opportunity. And when he gets the opportunity, he's going to keep getting opportunities. Like we've seen it with Bryce Young. He just he got benched, got his job back, got benched again, got the job back. The 101 in the NFL draft will have every chance to make it work before they move on.
Yeah, and Judd, we're talking about another team that's probably not going to be competitive this year, probably not fighting for a playoff spot. He's got a lot of roster filling in that he needs to do. He had a lot of picks in this draft to help kind of flesh that depth out,
Hmm.
but he's not really worried if Mendoza starts half the season this year or not. I think the key was
Yeah.
getting that locked in quarterback and giving himself more flexibility in next year's draft. If next year's draft is going to be very quarterback heavy, as it looks like right now, that may allow you to ignore the quarterbacks and kind of take the other player values that are falling at different positions. So it gives them a little more flexibility going forward. And again, we're probably not going to see that many more quarterbacks go next year that are going to have better profiles than Mendoza this year. I mean, only one of them can go 101.
Yeah. I think that your point there, you have three locked in starters. It allows you to address other positions is absolutely the case and the perfect argument for doing this. I love it when my team is secure at quarterback, and that just means I don't need to worry about that position. I can go out and focus on other areas of need, and being able to do that in this draft and next draft where Judd also has extra capital is a good thing. Looking at the rest of Judd's quarterback room right now, he has Minshew. So if the Cardinals can't figure this thing out with Brissett, who knows? Maybe he'll end up with four starters.
What is Brissett doing? Like, I understand
I,
that he feels like he's not paid enough because he's not to be a starting quarterback. They're
yeah,
telling him, you are the starter going in. He'd probably like to make more than $1 million a year.
right.
Even backups are getting, 8, 9, 10 million
Well, do
as
you
like
remember?
Davis Mills. But you don't have a lot of leverage. Like
Yeah,
Gardner Minshew could do the same thing that you're gonna do. You went 1-12 as a starter last
you
year.
did not.
Like, it's not-
Yeah, you did not cover yourself in
Gardner Minshew
glory.
could do that too. I don't know. It's a
Uh,
tough situation for him to be in.
I wonder if this is skewed by the fact that, all right, I'm pulling these numbers off the top of my head. He was the guy who took over after Andrew Luck abruptly retired, right? And I'm pretty sure that he had backup money before that. And then the Colts just gave him a raise to $15 million for basically no reason. I think they gave him like 2 years at 15 each or something crazy like that. Maybe he's expecting something like that. Maybe it's the guys in the room need to know that he's making a decent amount to like respect, because that is unfortunately a thing for some NFL guys. Like they don't get the respect if they don't have the contract. But I agree. I don't think he's on a tier that much higher than Minshew. Uh, I'm not sure what his thought process is. I'm not sure what the team's thought process is. Like, just give him a raise. I don't. You
Yeah.
have to meet a
And
floor anyways, and you're not spending to it now.
recently we've seen teams be far more open to the just kind of 1 year raise, just bumping
Right.
up the player salary without adding years or any other language to the contract. But it's usually for good players, not like
Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett level players.
Right.
Like Patrick Surtain just got I think they gave him an extra 5 million this year on his contract just because he has outplayed his contract and they want him to be happy. And
Yeah.
he's an all pro level corner.
Or just look, you want to go quarterback. Look, Stafford just got an extra year for $55 million. And obviously he's
Right.
worlds better than Brissett, but you could very easily just say, hey, we're going to pay you an extra $10 million this year, and we'll add a team option for 25 million next year to make him happy. And you're not going to pick up the option.
It's a awkward situation to be in because the team is not really that much better with him versus
Yeah.
the other guys, but again, he's going to put his body through a meat grinder this year if he's out there for all 17 games.
Yeah. But if
Probably
you're
wants a little more security.
exactly, if you're going to have him run the offense and you know that he's a functional enough quarterback to help the guys that you're trying to develop, like he can make the throws, he's going to make mistakes, he's going to do that, you accept that, but he's good enough to continue the development of your other players, like that we just talked about, Love. Get him out there, get him in the offense so
Right.
these guys get reps with him. I don't know, it's whatever, it's Arizona, who knows.
Bad franchises stay bad
Yeah.
by doing things like this.
All right. With the third overall pick, Flinch, again, this is the last player who had his own pick. So Flinch had his own pick. After this, we start getting into the weeds. Flinch, with the third overall pick, selected Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver who went to New Orleans. What spot was he drafted at? Eighth overall?
Yeah. I
eighth
believe it
overall
was
in the
108.
NFL draft. All right, so Flinch breaks us into the first wide receiver take, and it was kind of a bit of a crapshoot who was going to go first. Everyone had kind of that same tier of Tyson, Lemon, and Tate in whatever order. Most people had Tate at the top. Tyson's the one of these guys with the highest ceiling, I think. That's basically been accepted, but he's also got some of the largest concerns.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about the variance between the ceiling and floor, then Tyson's definitely got the biggest gap. He was a very divisive prospect when we were reviewing, guys going into the draft, and then he gets top 10 capital,
Yeah,
which is pretty good.
pretty good.
This is the guys that get drafted in this range are, I mean, elite of the elite prospects. I know, this wasn't a great draft, but I mean, the guys still got drafted where they got drafted, going 8 overall to what should be an ascending offense. We saw how Tyler Shook and Chris Olave really took off down the stretch once they kind of got a hold of Kellen Moore's system going into year two. Now these guys are established players. The offense has been in place. They signed Etienne. It should be arrows up for Jordan Tyson. He's coming into a good situation on
Yeah,
paper.
right. It's like you said, it's an ascending offense as long as everything continues on the track that they finished the year on. Uh, I would worry a little bit looking at, say, Tate. He's going into a bit more of an open situation. Their number one receiver is outside of Tate is who, Wandale Robinson or something. It's not as much of a barrier to overcome and to get to fantasy superstardom, let's say. But for Tyson, there's already Olave there, and I don't think Olave is the best of the best, but I think he's a very good wide receiver. And I think that it'd be somewhat more difficult for Tyson to surpass Olave. I think he can be as good as, but I think it'd be more difficult for him to surpass and truly gain that, elite level target share.
Yeah, in fantasy, you're looking at stuff we've seen from Devontae Smith playing with AJ Brown the last few years, T. Higgins playing behind Chase. I mean, obviously these guys are not that level talent, but that's probably your best case fantasy scenario if everyone stays healthy and productive.
Yeah, there's always teams that have two top 12-ish wide receivers. I think that would be ambitious to ask of what we've seen so far from the Saints.
Right.
But,
This is a
maybe
ceiling
right,
thought.
right. Maybe a
If
year or two
everything
down
goes
the road.
perfectly,
Yeah.
if everything goes perfectly, this is Lamb and Pickens, but
Yeah.
I don't know if Shuck is going to be Dak. We'll have to wait and
Right.
see how that offense works out. But I mean, the offense was very productive down the stretch last year. It definitely looks like it's arrows pointed up in the right direction.
Right. And they added a running back to help keep the offense on schedule. Achan's there now as well, so that'll move it. Um, Again, this the same thing for Flinch though. If it takes a year or two, it's the same story as Mr. Good News and Judd. It doesn't make a huge difference because it doesn't look like Flinch is in position for a title run this year. So if Tyson does develop quickly and Shuck does come along and all of a sudden you're looking at another top 10 offense in New Orleans, well, then great. In a year or two, once he's fleshed out the rest of the roster, he's right there.
Yeah, and then in this league, in this scoring, wide receivers are king. I mean, wide receivers put up more points than any of the other positions.
Well,
So
almost.
minus a handful of the elite
Yeah.
tight ends. But
Right.
on average, if you're
Tell that to
comparing
Trey McBride.
wide receiver 30 to, the tight end 30
Yeah,
to running back 30, you're going to get a lot more points from your wide receivers.
that's absolutely true. Yeah.
So
Once
this
you
is
get down a little bit.
a good place to invest in your 103. You want to shoot for ceiling in
Right.
rookie drafts.
Now I like the Tyson pick. It's again, it's a ceiling pick. He's got the highest. Well, I think he's got the highest ceiling of the wide receivers, but time will tell what actually happens. Usually we're wrong about that sort of thing.
Yeah, we'll see. Right now, this is our thought. We don't
Yeah.
know. We don't know anything.
Let's go back and listen to what we said like 3 years ago. We'll see how wrong we were.
We don't need to go back far. We go back to last show.
Probably. All right. Fourth pick in this year's draft originally belonged to Criddle, but was traded and ended up being selected by Mr. Good News. Do you want to give us the journey? Because you're the one who mapped these out.
Yeah, this was a trade that me and Criddle did last off season. I don't remember the exact timing, but it was definitely before last season where I traded him Devontae Smith, Schultz, and Damian Martinez, and ended up getting this pick, Dallas Goddard, and Emmanuel Wilson.
Okay.
So at
Yep.
that time, it was looking like Goddard wasn't going to be on the Eagles for very long. There were rumors to be shopping him around or potentially cutting him, and we figured Devonta Smith was probably on the upswing, so he took a shot on his guy. Honestly, the trade looks a lot better now that AJ Brown's gone and Devonta could be in for a monster season.
That one could work out well for him this year. I mean, not that it was a bad trade per se last year. The whole offense struggled and Goddard ended up with all the touchdowns, so I guess it kind of worked out.
Yeah, and then after that, I mean, I pretty much held that pick all year until at this point when we were drafting, and then reached out to Mr. Good News after he turned down my pick for 101. I said, "Well, I have 104." I tried to give him 104 plus some other stuff for 101. I said, "Well, if you take Love, I'm still looking to trade 104. If you want to get back in here and take another one of your guys, because his next pick was a little bit further back,
Yep.
and I knew there was a couple of Eagles on the board that may have appealed to him. And with Criddle coming up next at 105, I thought it might be a good spot for him to jump in, get ahead of Criddle, get his Eagle of choice.
Eagle of choice. There you go. Yeah, we should say it now. Mr. Good News selected Mekhi Lemon, the wide receiver for the Eagles. What did he get picked? 20th overall?
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
Right. I should have written this stuff down. Yeah, so Lemon went to Mr. Good News via Criddle's pick that was traded to you and then to Mr. Good News. Was that an on the clock one that you guys traded or just
Yep.
after he made the 101 but before you were actually up?
This was on the clock. It was after Flinch made his pick. We were kind of waiting to see who Flinch was going to take. Wasn't sure if he was going to go Tate or Lemon himself. He ended
Yep.
up going Tyson.
Or
So,
even if he had gone Stowers or something, that wouldn't have been out of the question.
right. Yeah. We remember a couple of years ago, he took Kincaid in this range, 103 or 104.
It was Kincaid
So,
at 3, I believe. Yeah.
yep. Tight ends have gone very early in many of our drafts in this tight end starved league that we exist in. So, yeah, we made this swap. He had 106. So I moved back a couple spots, picked up a late second and a late third to move back a couple spots so he can make sure he got his guy. And he did. Picked up Lemon.
It's not shocking to see the Eagles fan taking the Eagles wide receiver. And so we're recording this June 2nd. Obviously, AJ Brown has been traded, but we knew probably like 3 months ago that AJ Brown was going to be traded. So it was not like he was drafting the guy he expected to be the third receiver, but the guy we expected to be the second receiver.
Yep. Yeah, that was kind of baked into his value already. AJ Brown was going to be out of there. Wasn't a lot of people that were not expecting that trade to happen.
I don't know if this is a case of Mr. Good News just going best player available, or he had, Tate and Lemon in the same tier and just said, oh, tiebreaker, I'll take the guy on the team I'm already rooting for. Uh, it could honestly, either one could be true and neither one is necessarily wrong. I like Lemon. I think he's a good player.
Lemon
I'm
has a
not,
very, very fantasy friendly profile. He
yeah.
earned a ton of targets. He's always open. He's, I mean, he's a lot like Devonta Smith profile wise. So I think they're going to be good complements to each other in this
Yeah.
revamped offense.
And as with all these guys, if it takes a year, it's not a big deal. His team isn't competing this year. It's a rebuild. You expect all these guys. I don't know. I should stop saying it because we don't really expect a huge year from any of these rookies, do we?
This wasn't really the class that we were
That's
expecting.
kind of what I mean. Yeah.
Guys that come in and immediately drop 1,200 yard seasons. I mean,
Right.
outside of Love, yeah, been pretty down on this class for the whole process. And there's a reason. A lot of these guys they didn't have the sterling profiles that we've been used to the last few years. The guys that have been ultra productive at very young ages in college, and those kind of things tend to roll over into the NFL, and those players are productive from a young age in the NFL as well. We didn't really see that. A lot of these guys took a few years to kind of get their bearings. So yeah, we're kind of projecting them the same way. A lot of these players went to teams where they're going to be supplemental pieces, not necessarily relied on as the main guys. Outside of Tate, none of these guys are like Lemon's not going to be the number one target over Devonta. Tyson's probably not going to be the number one target over Olave. I mean, barring injury, most of these guys went into places where they're going to be more supporting pieces this year, at least in year one.
Right. So I'm gonna try to stop saying it, but that's basically what I was getting at. I don't see the year one Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, all second half monster year. All right. Any final thoughts on Lemon?
No.
When life gives you lemon, make lemonade or anything like that? No. All right. We're gonna move on to the next pick. The next pick was originally JMC's pick and was made by Criddle. Again, we've got a bit of a circuitous route to get there. So you did all the research for this. I'll read this one off though, because you did share it to me. The 105 was originally JMC's pick. It went from JMC's team to my team during last year's rookie draft, or around last year's rookie draft. I think it was actually before the draft. For the 109, where he selected Jackson Dart last year. Dart and the 506, which ended up being Damian Martinez. Did JMC actually make that pick, or did someone else?
No, that I think I made that pick because then
I
I
was going to
traded
say, I thought
Damian
you had
Martinez
Martinez. Yeah.
to Griddle. So somehow I ended up
All
with
right.
that pick later.
So it was 105 last year and the 506 from last year for this year's first rounder, which ended up at 105, and a third round pick last year, which was the 311. I didn't make that pick, but it ended up as Shedeur Sanders.
Yep. Another one that changed hands.
Right. Yeah. So then I traded that pick to Criddle with Jordan James for CJ Stroud and what ended up being the last pick of the draft, the 512. It was Mel's fifth rounder. I don't know, a couple weeks before the regular season ended. I'm not sure exactly when. It was after the Mahomes injury, and I wanted an extra quarterback.
Yeah, it was before the playoffs.
Yeah, previous to the playoffs. Okay, so went from JMC to me to Criddle. Criddle ends up with the pick. He ends up taking Ty Simpson, but you want to give a little bit more context here.
Right. Because there was a big trade that happened not involving any picks in this first round, but it was a big trade that happened right before he made this pick. And that trade was actually holding up the pick because he wanted to make sure that he could get this trade done in order to take this Ty Simpson pick. So
I love trading on the clock. I love it even more when it's not my clock.
trading on the clock when you're not trading the pick that's on the clock.
Right. Trades on the clock are great when they don't involve anything that's actually happening in the draft. No, so Criddle and I made a trade. I don't remember exactly the specifics of it, but the long and short of it is Criddle ended up with Matthew Stafford, and I ended up with a 2027 first. I don't remember what other pieces, if any, were involved in that, though. You're going to have to help me out. And Raheed Shaheed, that's what it was. Raheed Shaheed and Taysom Hill, which who knows if Taysom Hill's even going to come back and play. He can, Criddle can keep him around on the roster, and then if he does, great. He got an extra tight end. If he doesn't, well, whatever.
He ended up trading Hill to Big during the draft later on. So.
Oh, did he? All right, great.
Yeah, sometime before the third round. And
that's
then,
funny because I got him from Big.
Big proceeded to cut him, so he's now on no one's roster, just like he's not on an NFL roster.
Great. It was so basically the long and short of it was Stafford and Raheed Shaheed for a 2027 first.
Yeah, I can't believe Shaheed is still worth a first after all these years. And so long since I gave up the first for him. And so long since I gave up that first for him.
He just keeps getting first round offers made, He's like AJ Brown, he was on the roster for first, got traded for first later on, or even to go back a little bit further, Brandon Cooks, he was traded for first on the roster for the Patriots for a while, and then they traded him for a first.
That's how many firsts did Brandon Cooks get traded for?
I think it was just the two. It could have been more. Criddle takes Ty Simpson to pair with Stafford. So essentially, he's locked up the Rams quarterback situation for the foreseeable future. It's an interesting strategy to go out and trade for the current guy when you draft his successor.
Yeah, especially when the current guy is in his late 30s, nearing probably the end of a storied career, and you're
Sure.
not probably not going to be competing this year. But obviously he has other plans. Maybe he
I,
plans to be a competitive team.
Stafford's coming off of an MVP season, so I understand wanting to get him.
I mean, if he plays like that again, he may be a competitive team.
Right. I think that drafting Simpson here is a good pick. There's not a lot of quarterback availability in this draft. Or let me rephrase, there's not a lot of first round talent quarterback availability in this draft.
Oh, you're right. There's not a lot of talent available. You're right the
So,
first time.
right. So if Criddle wanted a quarterback, it was basically now or never because his next pick was not until the middle of the second round. I think the same thing, though, almost exactly a round later, his own pick. But the likelihood of Simpson being available there was very low.
Yeah, I mean, this roster needed a quarterback. He only had Hurts. I mean, as good as Hurts is in fantasy, he was not going to carry this team by himself.
Yeah.
He needed to add somebody at that position at some point. He could have waited until next year and used his pick on an early quarterback. But instead, he gets the production of Stafford now and he gets his quarterback of the future, today.
And if you look at it based on what he traded away to acquire this pick, he essentially just re-rolled CJ Stroud into Ty Simpson.
Yep.
It was quarterback out, quarterback in. And I don't know, there are worse ways to spend your first round picks than on quarterbacks with first round draft capital.
Yeah. I mean, can't ask for a better landing spot for a quarterback than to go into this Rams ecosystem. If McVay can't make Simpson work, then he was never going to work.
All right. I think the most shocking thing about this Criddle pick was that it was not an Eagle.
Yeah, I was really expecting
I
Stowers to
was
be the pick
I
here,
was 100% expecting it to be the pick
and
because
then
you can.
when I saw the Stafford trade, I said, okay, well, I guess that's not what's happening then.
Well,
The
I
Stafford
thought
trade made a lot
once.
more sense after he took Simpson as well.
So here's the thing. I thought when he was going after Stafford, I'm like, all right, he's going after a quarterback outside the draft so that he doesn't have to draft the quarterback inside the draft. I thought it was the other way around. I thought, oh, this is clearing up so he can take the tight end here and still have two quarterbacks have a functional quarterback room. I don't know whether that would have been a better plan or a worse plan. Time will tell on all of it. But
Right.
we know that neither Criddle nor Mr. Good News is shy about drafting players, nor is Flinch or JMC. A lot of the guys in our league like their real life teams for their fantasy teams. I think I'm the only one who just avoids it like the plague. I think everyone else is kind of ambivalent on it.
Not sure which of those is which of those leads to less heartbreak.
I'm already heartbroken every time the Giants take the field. I don't need it to happen for my fantasy team. All right.
Being let down by your team times two. Not great.
All right. Any final thoughts on Simpson or anything about this selection here?
No, I mean, Criddle's always good for a wild card moment. You never know what you're going to get from him, trade wise, draft wise. So he
That's the truth.
definitely keeps us on our toes.
Let's move on to our next pick, which originally belonged to Benign Rug and ended up getting selected by JMC. This whole section here, where Criddle was originally at four, picked at five. JMC was originally at five, picked at six. It's screwing with me because I can see the name when I'm looking at the draft board, but it's in the wrong spot. All right, so this
Yeah,
selection originally belonged to Rugg, was made by JMC. JMC took Carnell Tate. However, let's go over the path that this pick took to get there. I know how the last leg of it went. You traded it to him.
This
Let's
was
give me the whole story, though.
this one was a real journey. So this was Ruggs' pick, and he actually traded it to JMC in the preseason before the season started. He traded his own first away to get Biggs 27 first and fourth from JMC. So JMC was in possession of this pick for most of the season, and he ended up trading it to Mr. Good News for Cam Ward. Remember that Cam Ward trade in the
Oh yeah,
middle of the year?
yep, I remember.
So then it ended up going from Mr. Good News to me when I traded back from 4 to 6. And then I traded it to JMC on the clock
We love it
for
on the clock trade. Yep,
Biggs 28 first and second.
28. Jeez, you're going further and further out with these picks.
JMC and I had this deal set up at 104. If Tate fell, if Flynn shouldn't take him at 104, he said, okay, we're going to do something similar to this deal so he could come up and take Tate. He really wanted Tate. Tate was his guy. He landed with Tennessee, which, makes it easier for him to root for
Right.
him. But most people believe that Tate was the best NFL prospects, including the NFL. I mean, he went 4 overall in the
Yeah.
NFL draft. He may not be the number one fantasy prospect, but he's he was the best NFL prospect. He does the most things well. I mean, he's the only one of these guys that can really play the X and win downfield and beat man coverage and do all the things that you need your X receiver to do. And I don't think there's anything that was more absent from Tennessee's offense last year than a legitimate X receiver. I mean, they've been trotting Calvin Ridley as an X for the last couple of years, and it is not his strength. He's not a win down the field contested target guy. That it didn't work well for his entire tenure there. Tennessee's been miscast. So Tate was a clear and obvious need for them. They pulled the trigger early in the draft. You know, James C was happy to get him. We had the deal ready to go at 4. But when Tyson went 103, I said, okay, hold, let's gamble here because I think that Mr. Good News wants to come up from 6 to 4 and take an eagle. I don't know if it was going to be Lemon or Stowers, but I had a feeling he wanted an eagle. So I don't think he's going to take Tate. I have no idea what Criddle's going to do. But if Criddle doesn't take Tate, then we'll do a deal at 106. And yeah, it worked out. Mr. Good News got to trade up and get his guy in Lemon. Criddle did Criddle things, took Simpson, so that left Tate at 106. The trade was on there before Criddle made his pick. I wasn't even at my phone. I didn't even realize that I had traded the pick until after it happened because it was just sitting there waiting to see if Tate was going to go or not. I said,
Yep.
if Tate's there, take the trade, take your guy. And that's how it worked out.
Yeah. Getting a wide receiver drafted 4 overall in the NFL draft at the sixth pick of your fantasy rookie draft is, I'm not sure what the right word for that is. Lucky isn't it? Because it's impressive that the NFL valued him that highly, and we left him hanging out on the board for that long.
Yeah, and for him, I mean, he got to do it without having to give up a 27 pick, which was really the goal all along. These 27 picks are so valuable right now. Nobody wants to give them
It's
up
bizarre.
for anything. So to be able to for him to be able to do it, give up the 28 pick, which was an extra pick, not even his own pick, an extra 28 pick that he had, go get his guy at 106. Yeah, it was I think it worked out well.
JMC likes to take guys on his team, and this means that he now has the stack with Ward. And if Ward and Tate develop into, I don't know, anything resembling a top half pairing, it's going to be foundational for his team for years to come.
That offense has got to be better than last year. They've added Wandell
Yeah,
Robinson, Arnell Tate, a real legitimate play caller in Brian Table.
yeah,
The infrastructure is there now for Ward. It was not last year. Last year was a disaster. I mean, we had Mike
right.
McCoy uh, coaching the team at the end of the year. It was This was not a functional team. Poor
That's
Cam Ward had about as bad a supporting cast as you can have. He had guys out there that were at best fourth and fifth receivers, special teams guys, Io Manor and DK. They're fun players, sure, but these guys should not be your number one target earners on a actual legitimate NFL offense. And now they're going to be pushed down to more appropriate spots. If they hold on to Ridley, now you've got Ridley, Tate, and Wandell out there as your three wide receiver sets with DK and Io Manor mixing in. It's a immeasurable improvement compared to last year.
Yeah. It should be a functional offense this year, where for large stretches of last year it was not.
Yeah, pretty much the whole season. It was not.
If Ward takes a step forward, which is very possible, then we will know fairly early on about Tate as well.
Yeah,
He's
I mean
got,
Ward was the first pick in the draft. These guys
yeah,
go first overall for a reason.
yeah.
The talent's obviously there. Can he put it all together this year with a better supporting cast and a better play caller? Uh,
Just taking a quick look at JMC's team, he's got the cleanest quarterback room in our league. He's got Cam Ward and Jackson Dart and no other quarterback on the roster.
right. That's no fluff. That's how you want to build in best ball. Obviously, one more quarterback would be better, but
Right. I just
having a
mean there's no gunk there. There's no extra stuff.
yeah, having a lot of backups and guys that are going to score 0 points every week, not ideal in a best ball. Even one
Right.
as deep as this, you don't want to have too many of those guys. So he's working on the roster construction.
Our next pick, what are we up to? Seventh pick? One, two, three, four, five, six. Say it. The seventh pick was originally Flea's pick, got traded around and ended up with Mr. Good News. And with that selection, he took Eli Stowers, the tight end who was selected by the Eagles. I don't recall what pick he was selected at.
Yeah, he was a second round pick for the Eagles, late second. This pick has been in Mr. Good News' possession for a long time. This was a trade done in the 2023 season where Flea traded an entire draft class. So her
Yup.
first, second, third, fourth, fifth of this class, and her fourth and fifth from the previous class to acquire Stephon Diggs.
Was he the only player in that?
That was it. It was a 7-for-1.
Fourth and fifth, like all right, whatever.
Right.
But still, that's a lot of assets for one player. I mean, I get it. Diggs at the time was phenomenal.
Diggs is good. He's been good.
Yeah,
That was a lot of points that she acquired, and at that time, as
yeah.
she's been in this continued existence of hyper competitiveness, where she's trying to win every year. This is what she was doing, mortgaging her future 3 years out to get a guy that was trying to push her over the top and try to get her to get her
Hey,
to win.
and not to bring it back to that, but that she made the finals and she put up what was it, the sixth most points in the league that we'd ever seen that year in the
Right.
finals. So that came basically as close as you can possibly come to working without
Yep.
actually getting the title.
But yeah, this was the final payoff from that trade. Now the bill finally came due, so her first, second, third, fourth, and fifth all went to Mr. Good News, and the one that we're talking about here obviously is the first round pick, where
Yeah.
Mr. Good News managed to get both Eagles somehow. He finagled his way into getting both of them. I expected the tight ends to go a little bit earlier than this in this draft, but this was a good spot for Stowers ahead of Sadiq, which was interesting. That's
Yeah,
definitely
Sadiq with the
not
first round
how
NFL capital.
definitely not how most drafts went, but we had a pretty heavy Eagle influence here.
Right. You have to assume that had something to do with it. But
Also, he had the next pick, and
yeah,
that probably
that
had something
that's
to do
true.
with it as well.
We'll flash forward real quick here. The next pick was also Mr. Good News, and he took Kenyon Sadiq. So I guess if you're sitting there and you know you're going to take both, you take your team's
Take your
guy
guy
first,
first.
just to you know. I get it. It is an easily justifiable pick in our league in scoring format for both Stowers and Sadiq. You always need tight ends. These two were considered head and shoulders above most of the rest of the class by most NFL analysts. They both got high draft capital. They both got solid landing spots. Obviously, Goddard is still hanging around, but how
Yeah,
long?
he signed another 1 year deal, so
Right. You
Stowers
know,
is definitely the guy that they're looking for in the future.
he's the guy that they plan for the future, position.
Yeah, there's a reason that the Eagles invested so heavily in the offense in this draft. Their offense for a long time. I think last year they were the most expensive, highest paid offense in NFL history. So they had to move on from AJ Brown, which we saw earlier, and now they're the Bills starting to come due for their young defense. A couple of years ago they invested the money in AJ Brown because we had Jalen Hurts on a rookie contract. We had no Saquon Barkley. All the money was invested in the defense. As those guys kind of aged out, started to pay the offensive guys. They went through the draft and went heavily on defense. Now those guys are maturing and they're going to start getting extensions. So now you got to, save money on offense. So we saw a lot of skill guys. They took Stowers and Lemon with the first two picks. Going to see a lot of young guys on offense get a lot of reps this year and the next year as they kind of keep the books balanced.
Yeah, it's the life cycle of NFL teams. They have to heavily invest in certain drafts at certain positions, and then 4 years later they got to do it again. So we teased it briefly there, but that was the 107. The 108 was Kenyon Sadiq, also selected by Mr. Good News. That pick originally belonged to Georgia Mike. Let's go over how he ended up with that pick as well.
Yeah, this was by far the most well-traveled pick of the of the lot. We had picks like Please that were traded earlier, 2023. We had picks like 106 that got moved twice on the clock during the draft. But nothing was more well-traveled than this 108 that originally belonged to Georgia Mike. So let's go back to 2024 when Georgia Mike was making a playoff push,
We need a
starting
sounder
to
for that, like the chimes.
let me take you back to 2024.
Yep.
When Georgia Mike was coming off of a hard rebuild. He was trying to push to get into the playoffs for the first time. He made a deal with Mel to acquire Kyle Pitts. And in that trade, he acquired Pitts and Eckler. He gave up this pick, this first round pick, Zach Ertz, Emmanuel Wilson, and Biggs 2025 first, which that 2025 first, I mean, talk about well traveled. I think that pick, I tried to trace it back as far as I could. It went through 8 or 9 trades before it ended up back in Biggs' hands when he took Quinshon Judkins last year. That pick moved a lot. So this pick
Uh,
was in Mel's hands in 2024, and he had it until last year. So last year, Mel made his championship push by moving this pick and his own first round pick, which was the 112. Spoiler alert, he ended up winning the championship partially on the back of this trade that he did with Flinch, where he got Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, Juwan Jennings, and George Pickens.
yep.
Yeah, so those two firsts ended up going to Flinch.
Trust me, I
So
remember.
then Lynch had the trade until draft day, where Mr. Good News ended up giving him 212 and 404 to move up from 10 to 8 in order to take Sadiq. End up taking both tight ends.
Yep, that's a journey.
It went from Georgia Mike to Mel to Flinch to Mr. Good News, finally
Yeah,
making the pick.
4 different managers, 3 different seasons. I love it. That- that's the fun part of the trades is seeing, every all of us have made great trades and all of us have made horrible trades. And getting to watch like what a pick gets valued at and how it moves is really pretty entertaining season to season.
Right. Yeah, if you go back far enough, some of these values look very disparate.
My favorite thing about all the trade evaluators is that they really, as soon as you get more than like 2 years out, they're just basically who traded for the younger guy and that
Right.
guy won the trade. The trade evaluators are absolutely ludicrous, and everybody comes up with them with the AI tools these days. And you have to look at all these trades in the context of the moment. You can't look at them years after the fact. We
Right.
all make
Yeah,
good ones. We all make bad ones.
it's impossible for any kind of trade evaluator tool to take into full context of the league and the team construction and what how many points you ended up getting out of that player versus what you would have had in your lineup at the time. I mean, there's
Right.
too much that goes into it. You have to have some kind of gut feel to evaluate trades,
Yeah.
and they have to be done in the moment. I mean, it's hard to look back trades that happened 3 years ago and say, well, now we know who definitely won. Because if you look back at 2 years ago, it might be different. Looking back when it happened, it could be even different.
Yeah.
We've had enough trades like that. I mean, me and Mel had a Justin Fields for Tua swap, and it looked great for one side, and then the next year looked great for the other side, and then after so many years, it looks bad for both sides.
Is it possible that we both lost that trade?
Right. It's like
Let me tell you who lost that trade, the audience.
everyone.
So let's talk real quick here, though. Mr. Good News essentially cornered the market on highly drafted tight ends this year, which is something that I tried to do last year but was unable to. JMC, you really should have traded me that seventh pick. I could have taken them both. I like that strategy. As someone who has tried to get the market on tight end, I think it's a good strategy in this league. The problem with drafting tight ends is that sometimes they take a long time to return value, and sometimes they don't return value on that first contract or for that first team and all that. So it's a risky strategy as well.
Yeah, in this league where you have to start two, and they're also viable flex options because of the bonus scoring. It makes sense to load up on tight end if you can, because there's just not that many good ones. And the upside of getting a good tight end is well worth the downside of maybe drafting them a little too early compared to ADP, or drafting too many, according to how your roster construction may be ideally set up. But in this league, just the benefit is just so far outweighed any of these negatives,
Yeah.
just in this specific format in this league that we play in. I definitely wouldn't recommend that strategy in every league, but in this
No,
one
no.
specifically, it can definitely work.
All right. Any thoughts on these tight ends, Mr. Good News? Drafting players from your favorite team, anything like that?
This is a good value to get both these tight ends here. We've seen in the
Yeah.
past that tight ends that go in the first round in this league
Right.
are usually, they could be going 101, 102,
Yeah.
103.
The 2 years previous to this, I took tight ends at 103. I took Warren last year and Bowers the year before. I
Yep.
looked it up. Flinch actually took Kincaid at 4 overall, but still like right up there.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, it would not have been shocking if Judd or Flinch had taken one of these guys at 102 or 103.
Yeah.
It would not have batted an eye.
No.
So to get him here at 7 and 8, that's good value. He didn't give up a ton to move up a couple of spots. He had a plethora of middle, late round picks that he could kind of play with, maneuver the board and get the guys that he really wanted. And I think he did that very well, especially in the first round.
All right, let's go to our next pick. The next pick, originally your pick, ended up on Judd's roster, and Judd made the selection of Jadarian Price at 109.
Yeah, this was a little simpler. This was my pick, and early in the season, I traded it to Judd for Garrett Wilson and Kate Otten. I think he got 109 and what ended up being 207 for Garrett Wilson and Kate Otten, which turned out
So
great because Wilson got hurt and missed the whole season. So that was wonderful. Worked out really well for me.
I I think if we hooked you up to the lie detector, you'd still rather have Wilson than Price. I'm not
No,
sure about that though.
of course, I'd make that deal again today. But
Right.
didn't pay off the way I was hoping it would last year. Maybe this year will be different. We got Geno
Right.
Smith now on the Jets. Arrows
I,
pointing up.
I mean, it worked so well the first time. Why not run
Geno.
it back?
As long as no one breaks his jaw, it should be good.
Oh man. All right. So Jadarian Price got first round NFL draft capital. He was the last pick of the first round, but What do you call the doctor who graduates last in his class? You call him doctor. You got the first round capital here.
Not a lot of running backs get first round capital in today's NFL. It's been a long time since teams were spending premium picks on running back position, and he couldn't have possibly landed in a better spot. I mean, Charbs is going to miss probably most of the year, if not the whole year. He didn't even have his ACL surgery until February. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a long runway for Price to take over this backfield, and they're a good running team. We saw what they did last year with Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet. This was a very determined team, determined to run the ball, very effective at doing it. Couldn't possibly had a better mix of draft capital and landing spot. Opportunity is king for running backs, and he's going to have it. We know that teams historically feed running backs that they draft highly. There's a reason they took him there. It's because they want to give him a lot of touches.
Yeah, he's going to get work. The I think concern that some people have is that he didn't get a ton of work in any college games. He what is his most touches in a game was 16 or something like that.
Yeah, he was behind Jeremiah Love, who obviously went even earlier in the first
I've
round
heard of him.
in this draft. Wasn't a whole lot of opportunity, for him to carve out a big workload behind Love because Love was just so good. Now, was that because Love was so good, or Bryce was not good enough to force himself to have a bigger workload? Obviously, the Seahawks believe that Bryce is good enough to get a bigger workload in the NFL. So we'll see. It's not the first time in NFL history that a guy was a backup or a split backfield in college, ended up with first round capital and became a successful NFL player. So not unprecedented territory.
Again, similar to the tight ends and the quarterbacks, there was a couple of guys who got good capital, and then the next running back was a third rounder. We didn't have a single sec. Did we have any second round running backs? Am I forgetting someone?
Nope. No,
And one third rounder?
Keon Black when the end of the third round was the only other guy that went day one or two.
Right. So
It was a
if you would,
long wait for the next running back, a big teardrop. Although it didn't play out like that in our draft, but in the NFL draft, yeah, there was a big gap.
if you wanted the running back or a running back, this was your only option outside of Love.
Yeah, and
And
at this point in the draft, the top receivers were gone, quarterbacks were gone, tight ends were gone. I mean, all the obvious picks that could have gone at this point were off the board. At this point, Price was the clear top available player based
yeah,
on NFL draft capital, landing spot, opportunity, things like that. So
I have a team in a different league that I took over as an orphan, and I had a lot of draft picks in last year's draft, and I was in a complete rebuild. I tore the thing down to the studs. I was just starting to build it back up, and I basically took almost no running backs. And during the season, I wished that I had taken at least a few shots here or there because I wanted to have those guys as trade pieces, and I didn't really care about having a functional offense in that league. I was going for the 101, which I did get because my team was really bad. But it's good to have a functional running back and a guy that you can use as a trade piece. If Price starts off the year hot and comes out strong, and Judd decides he's not ready to compete and he doesn't want that guy, every competing team always needs a running back. He'll be able to move him for value for probably a better selection than he used on him.
yeah, I tend to agree. I'm not one that I know the popular theory is, hey, if you're not trying to win, don't bother with running backs because by the time you're good, they're not going to be valuable and they have short peaks and short shelf lives. But I think the opposite. I think when you're rebuilding, you take as many running backs as you can. I mean, backup guys, because at any point in the season, if you have an active league like we do, there will be teams that need running backs because every team needs running backs. I don't care if you have 15 running backs on your team. That
Right.
could be down to three in a week. Just the way the NFL goes, the way the position goes. You have opportunity to move guys that can suddenly come into value, and it may be short-term value, but that's going to be short-term value that somebody else needs. as long as you're proactive about dropping them when they have the value when you can move them, I think it's definitely worthwhile to take running backs. We had that happen when Georgia Mike was deep in his rebuild, and Gibbs kept falling in that draft, and he ended up taking him. Just taking him because he was the best player there. He was the best player on the board. And then I ended up trading for him, I think, pretty fast into the season. I think it was right
Yeah.
after week one.
It
I
was
ended up
very,
trading.
very early
Like,
in the year.
nobody would trade for that pick when it was on the clock, but as soon as Gibbs started playing and scoring points, then suddenly, you know, people came calling for him.
Right.
So we could see that situation again play out. I mean, even with Love at 101, he may not have gotten what he wanted on the clock, but come a couple weeks into the season, if Love is ripping off big games, and suddenly that offer may be even better than what he could have had when he was on the clock. The same holds true for Price.
I agree. I don't know if I agree fully with take as many running backs as you can in a rebuild. I understand what you're saying and the
I'm not saying
context of it.
take high end running backs. Don't say, hey, go get Saquon and
But
CMC. But if
I
you're talking
would,
about handcuff level guys, those are guys that you should fill out your roster with because those are guys that you either move on from. They don't cost you anything to sit on your roster scoring 0 points.
sure.
But if they do come into value, then you can flip them easier than you would a 10th wide receiver.
I don't disagree with that. I always am hesitant to say draft to trade, though. I know that's one of like the big no-nos for the dynasty community is don't draft to trade, but you might get stuck with them. You might be wrong about them, et cetera, which is also fair. But in this instance, I don't have a problem with it, even if who knows, maybe Judd thinks he's closer to being competitive than we think he is. And again, up until halfway through last year, he had the highest win percentage in the league. So, if he thinks he's good, he's good. I don't know.
And the difference there is he's taking the best player available,
Right.
who just happens to be a running back. He's not forcing a day three guy that he was going to hold on to and hope he hits and sell for more than a first round pick.
Speaking of day three, guys, our next pick. Next pick was the 110, was originally Big's pick and ended up in Flinch's hands. And Flinch did, in fact, select a day three running back, Jonah Coleman, who I'm pretty sure was your RB2 in this class, and ended up getting selected in the fifth round by Flinch's Denver Broncos, which I believe may have had some influence on why he selected him.
Right. Yeah. Pre-draft, I did like Coleman more than I like Bryce. There just wasn't a lot of tape for Bryce. Like I never
Yeah.
saw him catch any passes or blog or I mean do anything besides return kicks and do some change of pace. I mean, once he went in the first round and Coleman went in the fifth round, okay, now those positions have to switch because you can't take a fifth round guy over a first round guy. That's just I don't care how much more I liked Coleman. Coleman wasn't that fantastic of a prospect. He's just kind of a solid guy, you
I'll
know.
I'll be
He,
honest. I do wonder what would have happened if Flinch had the pick ahead of Judd here, because I don't think Judd would have selected Coleman if Price had not been available. But I'm not entirely sure that the inverse is not the case.
yeah, I mean, we won't know unless Flinch lets us in and comments on that.
Sure.
But I would assume he would have taken Price as well, but you never know.
Right. So Coleman, is a player I liked. I thought he looked good as well.
Just
The
a
draft
solid
capital is
guy.
not there though.
Yeah, but again, it wasn't there for any running back. It's not like he passed on other guys that went in the second round or third round or fourth round. There was no other running backs. If he
Also
really
true.
was determined to get a running back, I mean, argument that this was the next best guy available.
He didn't pass on running backs, but their Omar Cooper was a first round wide receiver still on the board. Multiple second round wide receivers still on the board.
Yeah, there were quite a few guys that still went in that top 50, of the NFL draft that were available,
I
but
say
there
Concepcion
there
went
weren't any
first
running
round too,
backs.
didn't he?
Yep. He was the first round pick.
Yeah.
Cooper was the first round pick. Boston was early second,
Yeah, he
was
was
almost the
39th.
first round pick as
Yeah.
well. So I mean, there were other options at receiver.
Right.
Maybe he felt good about his receiver room. Maybe he just really wanted to take a Bronco.
The world may never know. It's interesting. He adds Coleman to a room that already had a good number of Broncos in it. He's already got Harvey on the roster. I don't think he has any of the other running backs.
Doesn't have Dobbins, but he
I was
has
gonna say
every other.
Dobbins.
He's got every other running back that's ever played for the Denver Broncos on his roster somewhere. And the Broncos, I mean, underpaying. They like to play three or four guys. So
Yeah,
Coleman's gonna get playing time. He's good enough in all areas to where if there's injuries or ineffectiveness, the guy can play on three downs.
right.
This is the it may have been a fifth round pick, but fantasy wise, he does have the upside here. He can catch passes, he can block, he can grind out yards. He's just a solid player.
He is. And again, I said it before. I like, go out and get your guys. Go out and get the guys you want to root for. It's what fantasy's about. I
Especially at
just
this point. I mean, we're talking about these other first round receivers, but they went to spots that are we really excited about multiple early picks in Cleveland or the New York Jets? The Jets took two pass catchers early. The Browns took two pass catchers early. And these were non-functioning offenses last year. So they can't get too excited about the prospects of these other guys he passed on.
before we get too far removed from it, let's real quick. This is the 110. This was originally Big's pick. This was another one that was traded. Big traded his entire draft class, the 110, 210, 310, 410, and 510 in 2024 for Ken Walker, Dalton Schultz, and Miles Sanders. That was a trade with Mr. Good News. So Mr. Good News then used that trade, as we mentioned before, to trade with Flinch up to 108. Flinch traded back to 110. I don't know. Again, I don't want to say issue because I don't have an issue with it here. The question I have is looking ahead, Flinch had 110, 112, and 203. What are the odds that Coleman is still available at 203?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it depends on who's available. Judd had just taken a running back at 109. He was coming up again at 111. Yeah, Mr. Good News had already taken Love. He was coming up at 201. Georgia Mike was at 202.
And
He's a
there's a
threat to
big difference
draft a running
between
back.
taking Jeremiah Love at 101 and taking a fifth round running back at 201. I think you could have safely said that one won't happen.
Hey, listen, there's no guarantees in this
It's true.
draft.
There's no guarantees. I just wonder if he could have gotten, and who knows, maybe he got exactly who he wanted at the next two picks, anyways, and it wouldn't have mattered. And in that case, this
Right.
is pointless speculation. But
For all we know, he would have taken him at 108 and ended up trading back to 110 to take him
right,
and get a couple extra pieces. So could have
it's
taken
it.
him that early.
Yeah, exactly. It could very well be the case.
It's not crazy for ADP. I mean, Coleman goes in this late first, early second range in
Does
most
he
drafts.
really?
Yeah, it's just that's the way the draft is this year.
All right.
It's
I
it's not
yeah.
crazy out of the ordinary.
I will say
His
that I've
ADP
had
is in this range.
more fun
Mhm.
drafting this year outside of like the top three because you never know who wants what player. And it's been kind of the Wild West out there in a lot of these drafts, which is more entertaining in my opinion.
In leagues where it's not tight end heavy or tight end premium or a point per carry or anything that like half PPR, anything that devalues the other positions, not like our league. Woman goes even earlier. He goes 105, 106, something like he goes up there. Teams need running backs, and there weren't very many to go around in this draft.
All right,
And
then.
there were even less that have, three down profiles.
Time will tell if it's good value or just chasing positions, who knows.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to our next pick. This one was the 111, was originally my pick, ended up in your hands, and you selected Casey Concepcion, who I'm pretty sure was your wide receiver one.
Yes, I really liked Casey Concepcion. If I had stuck and picked at 106, I would have taken Concepcion there if the draft had gone differently. If some of these other guys had gone off the board and not Simpson, I would have taken KC there. I was comfortable taking him there. I
Right.
ended up being able to trade out of that pick and then trading back in later to take him.
All right. So this pick was my pick. It was traded during last season, I made a trade with Judd with my first rounder, my second rounder, and what ended up being the 305. So 111, 211, 305, and 509. So four picks for James Cook, Mark Andrews, and obviously the centerpiece, Joe Flacco. And then Judd traded that on the clock to you for 208 and then my 27 seconds. So Judd picked up a pair of seconds for his late first.
Yeah, he wasn't super thrilled with the guys that were on the board. It's kind of a flat tier for most people at this range.
Yep.
That's why you see guys like Coleman go in this range. Is there a big difference between who goes here and who goes at 207?
Not
For
really, no.
some people not a big difference. And he really wanted to get some extra 27 capital. There weren't a whole lot of teams that were willing to trade any 27 picks at all. So I think that kind of helped my cause here to get back into the draft after I had traded
Yep.
back and then traded out, then traded back in.
Well, I mean, it's not that big of a deal for you to give up next year's 212.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
All right. So you pick up your wide receiver one at 111. That's I mean, I like Concepcion. I don't know that I would have had him as my wide receiver one, but to be fair, I don't know that I wouldn't have either. I didn't actually rank most of these guys. I was going kind of on vibes. I
I
drafted a
don't
little I drafted a little bit of everyone in
I don't
various
think
leagues.
that I don't think that Casey is the best receiver in this draft or even the best potential fantasy guy, but he was definitely the most fun to watch.
Yeah, it's
I
fair.
enjoyed watching his tape far more than anyone else's. He was number one in my heart for sure.
Number one in your heart. There you go. Well, we know that you don't make very many rookie selections, so you must have actually wanted to make this one. Otherwise, you would have
I
just traded out or back or not traded in.
think this is the first round pick I've ever made.
I'm gonna have to go back and look.
I
That
don't
could be
think
the
I've ever
case.
made a first round pick in a rookie draft in this league. I think this was the first time.
Uh, I believe you, but uh, hold on. I'm checking. The year before 25, you did not.
Yeah.
Let's go
I
24. You did not. I made your pick. I got Bo Nix. 23. Let's take a look. This is great audio for everyone. 23. You did not. 22. We're all right. Last one. 22. Did you make a selection in 22? Team
no.
one. Oh, who was team one at the time? Nope, you did not. You have not made any first round picks until now.
And like I said, I would have taken it much earlier. I was actually trying to trade back into the draft for the last several picks. I think pretty much when Judd was on the clock at 109, I sent him an offer and he ended up taking Price. And then I made an offer to Flinch and he took Coleman. So I made another offer to Judd. I said, hey, I was like, how about this offer again, but now for a later pick? Since now we're 111. And he's like, all right, fine. Now I'll take your offer.
There you go.
So it worked out. Obviously I would have taken him much earlier, but I'm happy to have him at 111.
Yep.
Felt like good value to me. I'm not thrilled that he's on the Browns,
Right.
and
I was just about
uh,
to say that Brown situation is not pretty. So I'm not sure that you're going to get an immediate return on this one, my friend.
I'm not thrilled of having multiple pass catchers in this offense. Important pass catchers and Fannin and Concepcion, but I expect the Browns to be bad this year and pick pretty high next year and hopefully better quarterback class, and they can replace Watson and or Sanders with a legitimate NFL quarterback next year. We'll see. Time will
What-
tell because it's the Browns. They'll probably find a way to screw it up.
Probably. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe Watson returns to some level of functionality and can at least pretend to be a good quarterback for a year.
I have my doubts.
We all do. All right, let's close out this first round here. We got one more pick. It was originally Mel's. It was traded around, ended up on Flinch's roster. Flinch made the pick. He selected Chris Bell, Dolphins wide receiver. Bell drafted third round? Yeah, 94th
Yeah,
overall.
He was
So
the
he's recovering from fairly late season ACL injury right now, but he projects to be one of the lead guys there once he's actually healthy and ready to go.
yeah, he wasn't even the first receiver that Miami drafted.
No.
This was probably the most surprising pick for me of the first round, more than Coleman was Chris Bell going here. I see the upside case. He was breaking out at Louisville this year. He until he tore his ACL, he was turning into a really kind of dominant after the catch, big bodied receiver. And he's going to a situation where there are no receivers. Miami has nobody that is really an impediment if he
Greg
gets back to
Dulcich.
that if he gets back to that form, there is nobody in his way. And you're talking about guys like Jalen Tolbert and Tutu Atwell. Then they drafted about 16 rookie receivers this year, all of them, mid to late picks. Is guys that were held over last year, like Malik Washington. Not a whole lot standing in his way. If He
Jalen
can
Rager?
he can very yeah. They signed Jalen Rager today because they looked at the
Forget
guys they had in camp and said, maybe we could do better.
are
Let's
you
go get
forgetting
Jalen
Taj
Rager.
Washington?
It's both Washingtons there, Malik and
Right.
Taj. It's
Uh,
it's
Theo
not great.
Reese?
Poor Malik Willis.
Yeah.
I think Malik Willis is going to run a lot this year because he's going to look to pass and be like, I think I'll run.
I, he's gonna have to. Like he's not gonna have anyone open. Who
And
is the best person on this team at getting open right now?
I don't think there is one. They got a
HN.
bunch of gadget guys that are like fourth and fifth receivers
Yeah.
on real NFL teams. We thought Tennessee was bad last year with their receivers.
Right.
This is worse. This is like 2014 Chiefs with Alex Smith, where he didn't throw a touchdown to our wide receiver the whole season.
I
That's
was gonna
that's what
say
we're
this
looking
is
at.
like
Was that
2009
2014?
Patriots or whatever it was.
What was the year that Alex Smith didn't throw a touchdown to a wide receiver the whole year?
Oh man.
Was it 2014? Somewhere around that time.
I want to say like 2012 or something. I don't remember. Yeah, it was in that range.
We
Oh
may
man.
see that repeat this year. There may not be a single touchdown between the Miami receiving core. But again, at this point in the draft, it's a pretty flat tier. Take your guy if he thinks that Chris Bell is going to emerge from this room and play like he did down the stretch before he got hurt for Louisville. This could end up being a good pick, or he could never regain that form, continue to miss time, have complications, and this will be a wasted pick. But at this point in the draft, shoot your shot. But yeah, he wasn't even the first receiver that Miami took in the draft. So I would have expected someone like Cooper, Boston, or guys like that to go here. But Chris Bell certainly showed flashes. There's a chance that he would have been in this, top 50 range of the NFL draft without the injury. A lot of people were predicting that he might be a late first round pick.
Right.
So
Yeah, and again, this part of the drafts in every league I was in essentially turned into take your guy and ignore everything else that everyone is saying because none of us have a freaking clue once these top guys are gone. It's all
yeah,
just what do you want? Who do you feel like?
right.
And at
At
this
this point,
point,
all the obvious guys are gone. So
right.
take who you like.
Yeah, and Flinch had already drafted one wide receiver and one running back. Taking another wide receiver is always a good choice. I don't know. It's any player, almost any player, is defensible at the end of the first round this year. So,
Yeah.
all right. Any thoughts on the first round as a whole? Any final thoughts on Bell? Any final thoughts on anything before we can jump around a little bit and just shout out names we like?
No, it was an interesting first round, as it usually is for us. We don't always go by consensus in this in this league.
Well, the consensus in this league it doesn't really match the consensus in any other league that I've been in.
Yeah, it's got a unique scoring format set up,
Got its
so
own flavor. Couple things that I want to jump to first is Judd ended up with 3 picks back to back to back in the second round. So he had the seventh, eighth, and ninth picks in the second round, as well as the 11th. He triple tapped running backs there. He picked Emmett Johnson, Mike Washington, and Katron Allen back to back to back. I thought that was an interesting strategy for Judd.
This whole second round was interesting. I assumed going into the draft that it would be very tight end heavy.
Right.
This league is tight end starved.
If you
There
had made
are
me
were
guess the players in the second round, I think I would have gotten four of them correct.
right.
Maybe
We've seen
two.
in the past, last year, how many tight ends went in? It was like half the round was tight ends. This year we had even more options. There was a lot of guys that got drafted in the NFL draft. More tight ends than have ever been drafted, got drafted this year. So there was a lot of bodies, and for not a single tight end to go in the second round was the most shocking thing for me, probably in the whole draft.
I'm wondering if part of that is because of who had these picks.
Yeah, I mean, round three we had four, and then round four we had seven tight ends go. So they went pretty hot and heavy after this, but it was a little surprising that we didn't get more in the second. We got a lot of receivers and Judd taking all of the running backs. I mean, a couple of these guys made sense. Boston going to Mr. Good News, and then Omar Cooper going to Georgia Mike. Those guys go in first rounds in a lot of rookie drafts. So it made sense for them to get off the board early. But we saw a lot of receivers, especially day three receivers and day three running backs. Obviously, they were all day three running backs, but I mean,
All right.
Katron Allen was a seventh round pick, and he went in the late second in our rookie draft. So
This was a standard draft for us where 60 picks were made. How many selections do you think were made by teams that made the playoffs
I'm
out
gonna
of
guess
60
not.
selections?
I'm gonna guess not many. I'm say less than 10.
Nine. Only
Yeah.
nine picks were made by playoff teams. And of those nine picks, only one of them was that team's original pick, which was Georgia Mike selecting his own fifth round pick. I wonder if it was kind of because of who had the picks. Because even in previous years, playoff teams have made more picks than nine. That is a very low number.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's partially because everyone saw how many tight end options there were, because there were a lot of tight end options, like you said. A lot of these guys got decent NFL capital. I wonder if everyone saw how many they were, saw that the playoff guys weren't going to come in and scoop them up essentially because none of us had any draft picks other than like, big trading into the third round or the fourth round. And he did take some of them there. But for the most part, it was these non-playoff teams basically playing chicken on the who's going to start the tight end run.
Yeah. When most of the picks are in control of a handful of teams, they can kind
Yeah,
of dictate where guys are gonna go off the board.
right. I
If
would
they're
have.
if they considered the tight ends kind of a flat tier and they didn't want to be the first one to break into that tier, they were kind of waiting. Once a handful went, then a lot of them went. So that's
And,
probably how it played out.
and speaking of being the first one to break into that tier, it was Judd. Judd, after going back to back to back running backs in the second round, went back to back tight ends in the third round. He picked Claire and Delp with 302 and 303.
Yeah, yeah, those are two guys that I would have definitely taken in the second round where he took the running backs. So I mean, he ended up getting the guys that I would have taken in those spots anyway.
Yeah.
So it worked out for him.
It's interesting to see the way that everyone looked at the scarcity in this draft, where they saw it was not a lot of running back draft capital and a lot of tight end draft capital. And they said, well, we'll take the running backs. It makes perfect sense. But at the same time, it makes no historic sense with the way our league has drafted tight ends.
I don't think there was a lot of consensus on who the next tier of tight ends, like what order they should go in
That's true
outside of
as well.
Stowers and Sadiq. Tight end 3 through 12 were basically the same level of player, and they kind of went all over the place in most drafts. So maybe that pushed them down a little bit.
Yeah, that very well could be the case because, like you said, none of them had high capital. None of them had great landing spots. Like my my favorite tight end coming into this draft was Max Clare, and he ended up in what I don't think is a great situation for him.
In a 5 tight end rotation
Yeah,
in LA. They
Right.
like to play a lot of tight ends, but I don't know. It's going to be hard for any of them to be fantasy viable if the four or
Yeah.
five of them are rotating. So that's a
Oh,
tough
man.
spot. Yeah, I think pre-draft Claire was kind of the clear tight end three, but that landing spot, even though the draft capital was really good, he went in the second round,
Yeah.
but landing in that spot, it just at least year one, it doesn't look very great.
Right.
'Cause they just took a guy last year that everyone loved in Darius Ferguson in the second round, and everyone was super excited to see him take on a bigger role. And all of a sudden, they took another second round tight end this year. So
And
now what do you do?
and they re-signed Higby for another run
And
around.
they re-signed Higby.
Yep. And you still got Parkinson under contract and who's the last one? I'm drawing a blank.
Markinson played really well down the stretch, caught a lot of touchdowns.
He did.
He was a big time fantasy producer. Yeah, Davis Allen is still
Dave
there.
Sal,
Like
that's what it is.
they can't all play. They can't all be on the active roster. You can't dedicate that many spots to your game day roster to tight end.
Not with that attitude. Flea, her first pick, or I don't remember how many she had exactly, but her first pick was Jeremy Bernard. She got him middle of the second round, 207, I think it was. It's a good pick right there. It's solid value. He's a little bit buried on the depth chart now behind Metcalf and Pittman, but I like the player. I don't love him, but I like him.
Yeah, he was a top 50 pick, which is generally the cutoff for wide receivers that you are going to care about. Most guys that go after pick 50 in the NFL, it's a very, very low hit rate. So you want to get guys that go in the top 50. And again, like you said, it's a crowded room, but we're looking at a brand new offense. They're going to play three receivers a lot more than we saw the Steelers last year because Arthur Smith is no longer the offensive coordinator and he's not going to be playing four or five tight
Small
ends every week.
miracles.
He's going to be, McCarthy likes to run three receiver sets. Not a lot of competition for that third receiver because Pittsburgh didn't have anybody last year. I mean, they picked up Adam Thielen halfway through the year to throw him out there. It was getting desperate by the end. Jeremy Bernard has a chance to get out in the field pretty early.
Yeah. The only other pick I see from Flea's team here, I'm trying to go through this in real time, was Taylon Green at 410. That's not a bad lottery shot to take. It's not exactly a murderer's row in front of him. He might get a chance to start this year.
Yeah, he's more athlete than quarterback at this point,
He's a
but
hell of an athlete. I hate his throwing motion, but man, can he do everything else.
he's an athlete. I don't know if he's going to even end up playing quarterback long term.
Right.
Maybe a guy that gets converted to tight end or something like that. We've seen that happen, or
If they do that, I
even
would
receiver.
love to have him on my roster. I wouldn't bet against him.
Right. That's a guy you draft and you stick him on your taxi and say, well, he's 6'4", 240 and runs a sub 4.4 40-yard dash. Maybe he's Terrell Pryor. Well, who knows? That's a guy that, yeah, you want to take a shot on guys like that late in the draft because the odds of any of them hitting are really low. So you want to at least have a guy that has a really high ceiling if he does hit.
All right, and those are the only selections that Flea made this year. So bit of a thin draft class for her, but hey, she had more than I did, more than Mel did, and more than Rugg did because we made 0 selections combined. Let's give a brief overview for Georgia Mike here. He made 3 selections. Omar Cooper at the 202, and then 2 picks in the 5th round, Robert Henry and Jam Miller, a couple of running backs, lottery tickets there. So
Yeah,
again,
that's what you want to do late in the draft, fifth round. Just take running backs that are on rosters and see what happens in the offseason. It worked out last year. You got Jaworski Merritt really late and Kyle Monangai really late as well. I think both of those were fifth round picks from him, and they both ended up coming into value at different points in the season.
right, if you can hit at that kind of percentage, then I'll keep doing it.
Okay. But obviously, Omar Cooper, this is the big pick. This is
Right.
the trade he got in the Zach Charbonnet trade that I made with him late in the season when I needed a running back for the playoff run. I gave him this pick that was going to be 202.
Is that the third
Enabled him
time you've
to
traded for Charbonnet?
enabled him to get Omar Cooper.
Yeah, no, a first round receiver who's available in the second round of your rookie draft is almost always a good bet to take.
Yeah, obviously not ideal circumstances landing on the Jets after they had already taken another pass catcher earlier in the draft. You've got Garrett Wilson to compete for targets with, and they took a first round tight end in Sadiq. They have a second round tight end that they took last year in Taylor, and Geno Smith throwing the ball. So we'll see how productive the offense is going to be. There's a chance here. Omar Cooper was very productive in college, good after the catch guy, produced a lot of his own yardage, which is something you may need when your quarterback is kind of shaky. You
When
may
your
need to be able to
entire
produce.
team is shaky.
You need to be able to produce on your own after the catch. At least he has that ability. We've got one more team to talk about that actually made selections because there were multiple teams that didn't have any picks in this draft.
All right, yeah. The final team who we haven't covered any of their selections. It's Big's team. Big ended up with one, two, three, four, five selections in this draft, if I've got my numbers right. He took his first pick, two picks in the third round. It was Jacoby Lane at 304, and then he got his ticket to the club at 307.
So this is where Big acquired the Taysom Hill share that we talked about earlier. After you had traded Taysom Hill to Criddle, he turned around and traded him to Big with Jonnu Smith and this pick for Chigakonkwo.
Well, we know that Big always has his money round, and I guess that was the third round this year because that's what he could get into.
Yeah, I
Uh,
expected that this trade was where he was going to take Klubnik because he was worried that somebody else might snipe him.
yeah,
Like
he had to.
maybe Judd coming up in the next pick, who knows all his secrets.
I, you know, I I would guess that I don't know for sure, but I'm not sure that anyone who had picks in this range was going to go with Club as their first quarterback selection.
Yeah,
Now, if
I
I,
was surprised that it was Lane and not Klubnik here, but he ended up getting Klubnik,
yeah,
a couple picks later anyway.
right. You get he had a couple of guys. I've been in more than one draft with Big this year, and he's come away with Lane quite a bit. So I'm fairly certain that he's a big fan. But Lane was probably, in my opinion, Lane was more likely to go sooner than Klubnik was.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't realize that Jacoby Lane was his pick du jour this
It
year.
was interesting to see.
He's got his guys every year. This is the one this year,
Right.
obviously.
Oh, we all do. Well, almost all of us do. It was interesting to see Lane go, and then two picks later, see Surratt go. Both of them drafted fairly similar capital by the with fairly similar capital by the Ravens.
Yeah, and both going to a new offense in Baltimore with no real secondary receiver outside of Flowers. If they're going to run something similar to the Bears offense last year, the Bears offensive coordinator, Declan Doyle, now the Ravens offensive coordinator, this is potentially a very different offense than what we've seen out of Baltimore. We'll see about Rashad Bateman. He's had his struggles over his career, even though he's the
Yeah,
only Baltimore Ravens receiver to ever get a second contract, besides like Jermaine Lewis, who was a kick returner for them in the seventh round. We haven't had a lot of drafted receivers get second contracts here in Baltimore. Bateman hasn't exactly excelled. So we'll
yeah,
see. There's an opportunity for Lane and or Surratt to come in here and make some noise.
yeah. Well, he also got that contract extension coming off of his best season as a pro, which I think was what 45 catches or something like that.
Yeah, it hasn't been great.
It's
Last year he was mostly healthy and he still, I think, only had
yeah,
about 30 targets for the year.
no,
It's
it was
not
not great.
wide receiver two in Baltimore hasn't been fantasy product in quite some time. But
Yeah.
new staff, new coaching staff, new offense. We'll see what happens this year.
All right, a couple other picks for Big. He ended up with a few tight end shots in the fourth and fifth round. We had in the fourth round Jack Endries and John Michael Gillenborg back to back at the very end of it, and then right after that, also back. The three were back to back. The last two in the fourth and first in the fifth. Uh, Dallin Bentley, or is it Dallin?
Yeah,
I don't.
Bentley didn't stay on the roster long. He traded him to Flinch for Greg Dulcich and a third.
Right.
He gave up a third and Bentley and got Dulcich, I should say.
Well, you drafted a Bronco. What did you expect? Flinch was going to come calling sooner or later. It's like drafting an Eagle and not expecting, at least a little conversation with Mr. Good News and Criddle.
Well, he gave up Chig earlier in the draft, so he kind of needed someone else to fill that tight end spot with
Right.
with really no one behind McBride because Kittle working his way back from injury. That second tight end spot is pretty important when you have to start two every week. At least Dulcich gives him some kind of floor there if Kittle's not ready week one versus a bunch of rookies that we don't know what we're going to get from him.
All right. I think that about is all we are going to do for now. Unless you have any other picks that really stuck out to you. You want to talk about Nate Borkshire in the 5'11 spot,
Oh, great value. We're talking about a second round tight end available in this type of league at 5'11.
Your
Great value.
your guy Brennan Thompson at 401.
I really like Thompson. He's fast.
I
And
know
I like that he
I'm pretty
played.
sure did
I
you
like that
message
he
me or did I message you about him? I don't even remember.
I like that he played outside and won in the SEC, which is tough to do, even though he weighs 160 pounds. I told you, he reminded me of Smokey Brown, the old
Yeah.
Cardinals receiver that had
Yep.
that same kind of archetype. He was like 160, but he wasn't a slot gadget guy. He was an outside receiver. He played basically the X role at 160 pounds. Just took the top off of defenses. I expect that that's a similar role we're going to see for Thompson. The guy
Hopefully.
that used to do that for Herbert. Guyton did that for a little while. Was an undrafted guy that they had. Kind of ran that role for them. So we'll see.
Maybe
I know
interesting.
McDaniels was happy to get him on the roster.
Yeah. Took a shirt off and everything.
I think we've spent enough time talking about this draft.
All right.
This is
Yeah.
not the most ballyhooed of draft classes, but
No.
definitely some interesting picks. A lot of
That
teams
was
got better.
fun.
A lot of teams got better here, I think.
My team did not get any better.
That's good. We don't need your team to be any better.
I disagree. I didn't win the title. I need to be better.
The rest of us would not like your team to get any better. After you
All
set
right.
the record for most wins and most points last year. Your team gets much
I'm gonna
better.
do my best to break that record. I don't care about that record. I want the record of won the title. All right. Let's get out of here. We will catch everybody next week, but until then,
See you in the league chat.